I didn't know a single sentence could rearrange my entire career. But when my boss leaned across the conference table, voice cracking, and said, "I never wanted you on this project. I always chose him," something in me went completely still. Not angry, not scared, just still. People think explosions mark the turning point. Mine was silence, the kind that follows when you finally see the truth without flinching. The funny thing is, it didn't start with yelling. It started months before with small choices that didn't look like choices. Who got invited to the client kickoff dinner? Who got copied on emails? Who my boss stood next to when the VP stopped by? None of it was loud. Favoritism rarely is. It's quiet, polite, efficient, like a machine calibrated to pretend you're imagining it. I'd been at the company 5 years. Not a star, not flashy, just the guy who never dropped the ball. The one they called when a dashboard broke at 2 a.m. The one who rewrote documentation because no one else cared enough. The one who trained new hires and watched them get promoted past me because they showed leadership potential, which apparently didn't include staying late to fix their mistakes. My boss, Martin, was the kind of manager who spoke like every sentence needed an audience. He lived for being seen as a talent spotter, which really meant he liked choosing a favorite and riding their charisma like a surfboard. For the past 2 years, that favorite had been Evan. Tall, charming, allergic to details, brilliant at taking credit with the timing of a stand-up comedian. Evan wasn't cruel. He didn't need to be. He'd flash his easy grin during meetings and say things like, "I'll let Mark expand on the technical side," right after butchering the technical side himself. And because everyone liked him, no one noticed that I was always the one cleaning up after him. I didn't complain. I told myself this was how you built trust, by being consistent, by being the guy they could depend on. But dependability has a shadow side. People lean on you so hard they stop noticing your spine. When the biggest client project of the year landed, multi-million-dollar integration, high visibility, weekly executive reports, everyone assumed Evan would lead it. Martin practically shivered with pride when he talked about our rising star. I expected my usual role, behind the curtain, holding everything together with duct tape and logic. But then the VP skimmed our resource list and said, "Add Mark, that project needs someone reliable." Reliable. The word felt like a pat on the back and a shackle at the same time. Martin forced a smile. "Sure, of course, he can support Evan." Support. I'd been supporting for years. At this point it felt less like teamwork and more like being a portable safety net. Still, I told myself this was an opportunity. A chance to prove something, though I wasn't sure to whom. I joined the kickoff call with a notebook full of ideas and a stomach full of hope I didn't want to acknowledge. The first 2 weeks went how they always did. Evan charmed the client, promised timelines I hadn't agreed to, and casually pushed anything complex onto me in Slack messages that looked like jokes but weren't. "Think you can magic this by Friday, Mark? You're the wizard." Martin laughed at the emoji but not at the workload. Meanwhile, every time Evan missed a deadline or delivered something half-baked, Martin redirected the blame with subtle precision. "Mark, you should have reviewed earlier. Mark, you're the technical anchor. They depend on you. Mark, stay ahead of him next time." I started living in a weird limbo, responsible for everything, recognized for nothing. Then, one late night, I caught something Evan had nearly sent to the client. An entire data model, built incorrectly from top to bottom. If it had gone out, it would have sunk weeks of work. I stayed until 1:30 a.m., fixing it. When we presented the corrected version the next morning, Martin clapped Evan on the shoulder and said, "Beautiful save." I didn't correct him. I just felt something inside me quietly fold. When you work long enough in a place that erases you, you learn to stop asking for credit. You settle for being useful. You convince yourself that usefulness is safety. But safety isn't the same as respect, and eventually your gut figures that out before your mind does. The pressure kept building until the air in every meeting felt tight. Every time Martin spoke to me, it sounded like he was already annoyed. Evan grew more scattershot, more smug, more willing to toss work over his shoulder, like I was his personal landing pad. I didn't break, I didn't snap. I just started noticing the things I used to excuse, the way Martin avoided eye contact when senior leadership joined a call, the way Evan panicked anytime something technical came up, the way responsibility shifted like a spotlight, always away from the people who caused the problem, always toward the one who could fix it quietly. And then came the moment that would change everything. A tense morning, a missed deliverable that wasn't mine, a meeting Martin didn't want me in but couldn't exclude me from. He closed the conference room door, face tight, voice trembling not with sadness but with fear. And he said it, the sentence that cracked the floor beneath us. I never wanted you on this project. I always chose him. I didn't react. I didn't defend myself. I didn't even blink. Because in that moment, I finally understood two things. He wasn't angry at me. He was terrified of what was coming. And I didn't know it yet. But that sentence wasn't the end of the conversation. It was the evidence he didn't realize he was volunteering. By the time he said it, the meeting was already a mess. We were in one of those small glass conference rooms that make you feel like you're in an aquarium. Martin had his laptop open, sleeves rolled up like he'd been doing manual labor instead of forwarding emails. I was on the other side of the table with my own machine, a spreadsheet open that had basically become my second brain for the last 6 weeks. The agenda on the invite said Project Health Check. Translation, we were in trouble. The last 72 hours had been a blur of damage control. Evan had missed another handoff, an entire integration script left half done, and the client caught it before we did. Their email was polite and razor sharp. This doesn't match the agreed specification. Please explain. Martin's reply had been immediate and predictable. Thanks for flagging. We'll have Mark review and correct. Not we, not the team. Just me. Like I'd been sitting on a beach while Evan improvised his way through the requirements. I'd spent the weekend rebuilding what Evan had thrown together, testing, validating, patching edge cases he hadn't even considered. Monday morning, the fixed version went out. The client acknowledged it, but there was no praise, no relief, just more questions about timelines and ownership. By Tuesday, Martin had 3 meetings blocked off with me. Alignment, expectations, and the one we were sitting in now. You can tell how bad things are by how vague the meeting titles get. He clicked a few times, then turned the screen toward me. It was a slide deck I hadn't seen before. 4 bullets, my name in 3 of them. Walk me through this, he said. What is this? I asked, because if I didn't make him say it, he was going to pretend I'd agreed to it. Our story, he replied. For leadership. For the client, if we need it. We have to be clear on where things went off track. I scanned the bullets. Lack of proactive communication from Mark on risk. Insufficient oversight on Evan's deliverables. Technical perfectionism delaying timelines. Recommendation, move Mark into back-end advisory role post-launch. It was neat, efficient, a clean little noose with my name on it. You're making it sound like I've been dragging this project backwards, I said. Martin sighed the way people do when they think they're about to be very reasonable. I'm making it sound like you weren't the right fit for point on this one. I wasn't on point, I reminded him. Evan was, officially. On paper, he said, waving a hand. In reality, I needed you to be the adult in the room, and you weren't vocal enough when he dropped the ball. I was busy picking the ball up, and that's exactly the problem. He leaned forward. You do the work, but you don't manage the optics. You don't escalate. You don't make noise. Senior leadership doesn't see you. That's on you. There it was again, the twist where my ability to quietly fix things became the reason I deserved to be blamed for needing to fix them in the first place. You saw me, I said. You were on the threads. You were in the stand-ups. Martin's jaw tightened. You think this is easy for me? You think I like having to explain this? I put you on this to help him, and now I'm going to have to tell them the project only half delivered. because you didn't keep pace. There was a time when those words would have gutted me. I would have scrambled to defend myself, pulled up logs, begged him to reconsider. Now I just felt tired. If you put me on this, I said slowly, maybe don't phrase it like you were doing me a favor. He stared at me for a beat too long, like he couldn't believe I'd spoken back. That's exactly what this was, he snapped. A favor. You weren't my first choice. You know that. I never wanted you on this project. I always chose him. The sentence hung there between us, ugly and raw. He looked as shocked as I felt, like the words had come out a little louder than he meant. There it was, not implied, not suggested in performance reviews, not wrapped in feedback about visibility, just said outright. I watched his face shift. Regret didn't show up. Panic did. Look, he added quickly, this isn't personal. You're solid. But big clients need presence. Evan has that. You're more behind the scenes. That's fine. Every team needs people like you. Like me, the reliable scaffolding behind his Golden Boys stage. I opened my laptop and pulled up the project timeline, if only to give my hands something to do besides clench. You keep calling this a favor, I said quietly. But I'm the one who built half of this under someone else's name. You built some of it, he corrected instantly. Let's not exaggerate. I scrolled, highlighting task after task. Assignments opened under Evan's ID with my comments and commits attached. Change requests I'd handled. Issues I'd closed. My name was everywhere, just never where anyone looked. Do you want to go through these one by one? I asked. We can invite leadership, the client, whoever you want. Martin's eyes flicked to the door, then to the small speaker in the ceiling. The room was booked as a normal internal meeting. The conference bridge was open. We'd dialed in at the start in case anyone joined remotely. I'd heard the beep, the recorded, "You are the first participant," the usual corporate monotony. No one else had spoken. I assumed we were alone. He did too. This attitude is exactly why they don't see you as leadership material, he said. You get defensive instead of solution-focused. I'm trying to position you gently, and you're acting like I'm the enemy. You're positioning me under the bus, I replied. My voice still wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. And you're calling it gentle so you feel better about it. His cheeks flushed. He pushed back from the table, chair scraping hard on the carpet. You know what? He said. If you'd done half as much talking in front of the client as you do now, we wouldn't be in this position. I've been shielding you this whole time. That was the moment something small in me let go. Whatever part still believed that being useful would eventually earn me fairness just detached. I don't need you to shield me, I said. I need you to tell the truth. The truth is, he shot back, I trusted him. I didn't trust you with this. I still don't. That's why once this is over, you're off anything client-facing for a while. We'll find tasks that suit your strengths. Relegated, put back in the dark where I could quietly make other people look competent. Does he know that? I asked. Evan, that you'll keep putting him forward no matter what he delivers, because you like the way he sounds? Martin's reply came through gritted teeth. What I choose to do with my team is none of your concern. It becomes my concern when you rewrite history to make yourself look better, I said, and when you use my work to prop up someone you actually chose. You're skating on thin ice, he warned. I almost laughed. The ice cracked weeks ago. You just started noticing the water. For a second, we just stared at each other. Martin opened his mouth, probably to threaten HR or performance plans. Something official sounding. I didn't flinch. I was done shrinking to make his story easier to tell. That was the first small relief. Not winning, not clearing my name, just refusing to carry his version of events anymore. A small, quiet line drawn on my side of the table. He exhaled sharply. Fine, have it your way. When this goes up the chain, don't say I didn't try to be fair. He reached for his laptop to finalize the slide deck, to preserve his narrative in bullet points and corporate fonts. And then, from the speaker in the ceiling, a new voice spoke up, calm, measured, very much not supposed to be there. "Martin," it said, "I think we need to stop right there." For a second I thought I'd imagined it, that calm, deliberate voice drifting down from the ceiling speaker. It had the kind of tone people use when they've been listening longer than you want to believe. Martin froze. Not stopped talking, not paused. Froze, like someone had unplugged him mid-sentence. I looked up at the speaker, then at the conference interface on my laptop. The session was still active. The icon next to the call read, 3 participants. 3. I hadn't been the first one on the bridge. Someone had joined before me, stayed muted, stayed still, stayed hidden inside corporate etiquette, where no one asks who's silently observing, because senior leadership often sits in the back rows of meetings like ghosts. Martin swallowed hard. Who just spoke?" A soft click, then, "This is Amanda from the client team. I dialed in early. I've been here since 9. My stomach dropped. Amanda, the client's director of operations, the one who'd been promised a flawless rollout by quarter end, the one whose endorsement could pull future contracts or bury us permanently. "I wasn't aware this meeting was internal," she added gently. "You two dialed into the client bridge." The room went so quiet I could hear the faint whir of the HVAC. In the doorway of my mind, another realization stepped forward, the recording indicator. Client bridges auto-record by default. Time-stamped. Archived. Shareable. Martin glanced at the tablet on the wall where the call controls glowed a quiet orange, then at me, then back at the ceiling, as if hoping the speaker might declare it was all a misunderstanding. Amanda continued, her voice meticulously professional. "I'd like to clarify something before we go further. Martin, did I hear correctly that you never wanted Mark on this project, and that you always chose Evan, regardless of performance outcomes?" Martin's face went sheet white. "Amanda, that was taken out of context." "It sounded like context," she said. A rustle. Another unmuting tone. This time the voice wasn't from the client side. It was from our company. Martin, this is Elise from HR. I was invited to listen in on the project health checks this week." A pause, then, "And I'm still here." Martin's chair creaked under the tension radiating from his body. He looked everywhere except at me. "HR?" he breathed. "Why is HR?" "Because your team has raised concerns," Elise replied. "Pattern-based concerns about workload distribution, credit attribution, communication practices. Pattern-based. That phrase hit like a stone dropped down a well, growing louder the further it fell. My pulse thudded, but I kept my face still. When you've been blamed for everything long enough, having someone else articulate what you've lived feels unreal. "And now," she continued, "we have evidence that supports the claims." Evidence. Evidence Martin had just given them. In his own voice. He opened his mouth, shut it, opened it again. He looked like he was trying to catch words that kept slipping through his fingers. "Let's pause this," he said finally. "We shouldn't discuss performance issues in front of the client." Amanda's tone stayed even. "You already did." He flinched. "I'd like to understand," she added, "why you told us repeatedly that Evan was leading the project successfully, while internally you were attributing failures to Mark, especially given that the deliverables we've received, the ones that worked, appear to have Mark's signature all over them." My throat tightened. I hadn't expected that. Not from her. Not from anyone external. Martin scrambled. "Mark's contributions are noted, but he struggles with—" "No," I cut in. "You don't get to pivot." My voice surprised both of us. "You told her I was the risk, but every risk I flagged, you buried. Every delay came from work I didn't control. Every fix came from me." Silence. Then Amanda said, "Thank you, Mark. That matches what we've observed." Observed. Meaning, not guessed, not inferred, confirmed. Martin's eyes darted between the speaker and me, like he was looking for an escape from a room with transparent walls. I think we should take a short recess, he said, grasping at structure like it could save him. Sort this out offline. Elise responded instantly. No, we're escalating formally. I've already notified compliance. This meeting and its recording will be reviewed. I watched Martin's shoulders slump. Not dramatically, not theatrically, just collapse inward as if someone had finally switched off whatever was propping him up. A strange calm settled over me. Not triumph, just clarity. For months I had been carrying both sides of the project. Now the weight was shifting off me in real time. Amanda spoke again, now fully in client mode. For the sake of the project moving forward, I'd like Mark to walk us through the current status directly, without intermediaries. Martin inhaled sharply. I'm still the project. No, she interrupted. You're not. Not after this. It wasn't loud. It wasn't vengeful. It was simply final. That was my small emotional explosion, not watching him fall, but realizing I didn't have to hold him up anymore. I opened my screen share, calm hands, steady voice. Months of work lined up in precise order. Happy to walk you through it, I said. And for the first time since this project began, no one interrupted me. No one took credit. No one tried to rephrase my sentences into someone else's victory speech. By the time I finished, Amanda sounded almost relieved. Thank you, Mark. That was the clearest overview we've had. Martin didn't speak. Couldn't. He stared at his laptop with the hollow expression of someone witnessing the exact moment a story he'd been writing for months stopped being his. Elise wrapped it up. We'll schedule the formal follow-up. Martin, expect outreach from HR by end of day. The call disconnected. The room returned to silence. The first honest silence we'd had in weeks. Martin slowly lifted his eyes to mine. This isn't... He started. You don't understand how this looks. I understand exactly how it looks, I said. You told them. He opened his mouth with a desperate kind of earnestness. I didn't mean... You said it, I interrupted. On the record. And for once, I'm not cleaning it up for you. He sank back in his chair, a man suddenly aware of the cliff edge at his heels. And he still didn't know the whole truth. He didn't know that the documents he'd never bothered to review, the timelines, logs, commit histories, were already in a folder HR had access to. He didn't know that Evan had panicked earlier that morning and made his own confession to another team lead. He didn't know that the project he thought he controlled had already slipped out of his hands. He only knew one thing. The sentence he threw at me in anger was going to be the one that undid him. And the worst part? We weren't even at the end yet. The fallout didn't happen overnight. Corporate storms rarely do. They unfold quietly at first. Calendar invites changing color, meetings dropping off, new ones appearing with names you don't usually see. But once the process starts, it moves with the slow, inevitable force of gravity. By Wednesday morning, Martin's calendar was a graveyard. 3 recurring meetings canceled. 2 replaced with HR review. 1 labeled simply compliance. He walked through the office the way people walk through hospital corridors. Stiff, careful, unsure which door will hold the verdict. He didn't look at me, not once. I wasn't gloating. I wasn't waiting for a front row seat. I'd spent too long being the quiet one in the room to suddenly turn into someone who needed to watch him break. My job, the actual job, needed attention. The project had deadlines. The client had deliverables. And for the first time since this disaster began, the path forward was clean. No political minefields, no second-guessing, no performance theater to choreograph around. Just work. Work I could finally own. Amanda set up daily syncs directly with me. Short, precise, respectful. When I said something, she listened. When I made a call, she backed it. When I recommended a timeline shift, she approved it without suspicion. Things are much smoother now, she said on Thursday's call. It's amazing what clarity does. Clarity. That word landed softer than I expected. The team felt it too. Slack messages changed tone. People stopped whispering. The level of background anxiety dropped like the office AC had finally kicked on. Even Evan behaved differently. He found me by the printers that afternoon, hands in his pockets, face less rehearsed than usual. "Mark, I didn't know," he said quietly, about the stuff he said, or how he was spinning things. I should have paid attention. "You were busy performing," I replied. Not cruel, not accusatory, just true. He winced. "Yeah, I guess I was." A long, awkward moment passed. He wasn't a villain. He'd just been protected for so long he thought the walls were part of the landscape. "For what it's worth," he added, "I told Elise the truth about what you did, what I didn't do, the parts I let you clean up." I nodded. "Good." He nodded back, a little embarrassed, and walked away. That was our last real conversation. By the next week, he submitted his resignation. The note said he'd decided to pursue opportunities aligned with his long-term goals, which is corporate for "I'm leaving before someone pushes me." As for Martin, the process was swift. HR doesn't drag its feet when there's a recording, documentation, and a client confirming the pattern. First, he was removed as PM. Then he was barred from client communication. Then he moved to an internal-only role, which everyone knew was the waiting room before the exit. On Friday morning, a company-wide email went out. Leadership update, organizational restructuring. The paragraph about Martin had the familiar sterile tone. Appreciation for contributions, gratitude for service, transition effective immediately. No reasons, no details. Just a clean slice. Corporate doesn't say "we fired your manager for sabotaging his team." Corporate says "we're restructuring," but everyone understood. What surprised me wasn't his departure. It was the stillness that followed it. No relief dance, no adrenaline crash, no sense of victory. Just quiet, a normal quiet, a healthy quiet, the kind you forget you're allowed to have at work. And 2 days later, I was called into a meeting with the VP, the same one who'd insisted I be added to the project for reliability. She gestured to a chair. "Close the door, Mark." I did. "I've reviewed the timeline," she said. "The documentation, the recording." A small pause. "You held this project together. We'd like to move you into a senior role on the solutions team. More autonomy, direct client ownership. And," she added with a small smile, "proper visibility." Visibility. Funny how the word didn't sting anymore. "I'd like that," I said. "You've earned it." Not been given. Not been chosen as a favor. Earned. We shook hands. It felt like shaking off the last shadow of what came before. The following week, I moved to a new desk on a different floor. New team, new manager, an onboarding packet that didn't include cleaning up after anyone. My first meeting in the new role, my manager introduced me simply. "This is Mark. He's the reason the Q2 integration didn't implode." People laughed, not mockingly, warmly, like they actually understood what that meant. By the end of the day, I'd almost forgotten how exhausting it used to be. Almost. Walking out of the building at sunset, the sky the same amber color it had been the morning Martin told me I wasn't his first choice, I realized something. He was right. I wasn't his choice. I wasn't the person he wanted on the project. I wasn't the person he trusted. And it didn't matter. Because the story he tried to write, the one where I stayed in the shadows while he lifted someone else up, wasn't the one that survived. The truth survived. The work survived. I survived. People like to say karma is poetic. It isn't. It's practical. Karma is simply what happens when someone finally runs out of people willing to carry them. Martin ran out. And me? I stepped into a version of my life that fit better than anything he ever let me imagine for myself. No spotlight, no spectacle. Just a desk, a team that respected me, a project roadmap that didn't hide landmines, and a sense of peace so steady it felt like standing on actual ground again. That's all I ever wanted. And for the first time, I had it, without anyone else